Good morning. I'm calling to order the Audit Committee meeting for Tuesday, December the 9th. Let's start with an invocation. Commissioner Caraway, will you lead us? Please? Thank you.
Bow your heads. Heavenly Father, as we gather here this morning, we give thanks for the many blessings you have given us. Most important, the gift of your Son, the light of the world whose birth we celebrate this time of year. We ask that you guide us as we meet today, giving us wisdom and sound judgment as we seek to do what is best for our community. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Join me for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a quorum here with 3 members of the committee present. I need approval of the minutes of the previous meeting that have been previously provided to you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Those are approved. And is there any changes to the agenda?
Ready for your approval, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We'll proceed as listed. Let's start with the 24-25 audit results summary. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for time on your agenda today to cover the financial statement audit results for the year ended June 30, 2025. I am Bonnie Cox, and I do serve as your relationship partner from Cherry Beckert. This is a bullet point of our agenda. You guys can see the screen, right? Just double checking. Excuse me. These are the required communications. I remind you that we conduct the audit, and then we have the required communications to this audit committee. So this is just a visual to remind you of our audit team. Again, you can see there my role in being the relationship partner. Lauren Strope, yet again, has served as the engagement partner there, and Brian Liffick, who is our second quality reviewer, served as that quality review. I will just point out that these 2 individuals serve government public sector engagements 12 months out of the year. They're very specialized in this arena. We did have a new senior manager on the engagement, Byron, I should say. And so he was new to the team this year, as I remind you that we do switch it up every year to keep fresh perspectives to the team in different roles, but I did bring him, while Yumi Treadway was here on site, remaining again and repeating on the team there this year as the senior. So bottom line up front, we're prepared with the approval today to issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements of that year ended June 30, 2025. And so also it's in accordance with government auditing standards as required by the nature of the entity here. Lots of words on this screen. These are the same words. Nothing has changed in the professional standards from what you have seen in prior years. This just reminds you that we consider internal controls during the course of our financial statement audit, but we do not opine on those internal controls. But as deficiencies come to our attention, then we're required to report those deficiencies to this body of governance as a part of the audit results. There are 2 different reportable deficiencies that are required to be reported. One is called a material weakness, and then one which is a less severe in nature of the materiality of deficiencies in internal controls, called a significant deficiency. And so what I'm here to report today is we have neither of these, no material weaknesses to report for deficiencies in internal controls. Also this year, many of you probably have tried to shut it out of your brains. I know that many of us on many levels have tried to shut out the hurricane, but you did receive a significant amount of federal FEMA monies to reimburse you for the expenditures that were spent on the hurricane cleanup. And so because that is federal funds, it did pop as a what's called a major program. So we did do the compliance testing on this. There are about 14 compliance requirements that go along with spending federal funds. And so we did do testing over that compliance and the expenditures there, and we had no findings in the compliance testing there on the FEMA funds from the hurricane disaster recovery. This is also an important statement, and if I'm in your shoes as an audit committee member, this is one of the most important things that I like to look for in audit results. And this has to do with when the auditors came in and did our testing, did we have any adjustments? Did we have to propose any either past adjustments or corrective misstatements that had to be posted to the statements for that? And we had none of those. And so what that tells me as a committee member is that what it tells you is that the financial statements that were turned over to us from your management, we did all of our testing and we had no adjustments to those numbers that were given to us as part of the audit.
Great.
All right, these next few slides, some might think might be a little bit boring, but these are the required communications that I'll just bring to your attention. We did have one compensated absence change to the accounting principles. It's disclosed in note 2. If it had a material effect on the statements, I would bring to your attention that it did not have a material effect, but it just brings you up to the most recent GASB 101 compliance there for compensated absences there. Also, related party relationships and transactions. This is required communications to just bring to your attention that we are aware of these. We did not have any issues identifying or disclosing or finding anything outside of the normal course of business with the county there in regards to related party transactions and disclosures. Significant and unusual transactions, the professional standards have a very specific definition for what rises to the attention. Hurricanes do not qualify as a significant and unusual transaction in the course of government financial statements. A lot more nuance than that, huh? But anyway, there were none of those to report to you for the year June 30, 2025. All right, estimates. I bring this to your attention as a part of the required statements. Again, I'll remind you that estimates have to be audited in a different way. We can't pull a deposit and vouch a cash receipt. We can't look at a check disbursement and an invoice and that sort of thing when it comes to estimates. They require judgment. They require different factors that kind of management has to consider in regards to what those amounts should be reflected of in the financial statements. So professional standards require me just to bring to your attention what those are included in your statements. You can see them listed here. So for example, the estimate of allowance for doubtful accounts, the estimate of the uncollectible receivables bill, that's an estimate based on history. Depreciation expense, how long are your fixed assets gonna last you? How long are the trucks, the vehicles, the equipment, the buildings? Like how many years are you gonna depreciate that over? That's an estimate. Fair value of investments, so while you rely on investment statements to tell you, and we can tie out the investment values to those statements from your brokers, those still are estimates. They're all estimated values, and we test them out to third-party values to kind of corroborate the investment amounts that are recorded there. OPEB, acronyms, we love acronyms. This is other post-employment benefits. This is actuarial calculations based on benefits that are provided after people retire. So you have to accrue that today while the people are working for the county so that then the liability is there for after they retire and get paid out. All of those are estimates. Also, similarly, the pension values there are also based on actuarial assumptions there. I mentioned the compensated absences. Those are your paid leave for your current employees. So sick time, PTO, the leave time there, that's what that's regarding. Also an estimate. The solid waste landfill obligations, because of the closed landfill that is out there, it still requires post-closure care costs, again, based in engineering estimates, but still estimates there. The self-insurance amounts that are out there, so the claims payable that are out there for the way that you have structured your insurance structure there. Also, you have to record claims when they're incurred, not when they're paid, and so you kind of do an estimate to go ahead and book those as they're incurred. And then finally, the imputed interest rates on your IT, on leases and IT subscriptions. Those are those accounting policies that had to be implemented a couple years ago, well, over a couple of years there. So anyway, your management has to choose an interest rate to impute that to record the asset and the liabilities there. So lots of complexities there, but we were able to get the underlying assumptions to be able to audit those there. I'm sorry, thought I was over a sinus infection, but apparently not quite. All right, we also bring to your attention, we believe that your financial statements are clear and neutral. Required communication. All right, thank you, got it. Mm-hmm. Thank you. All right, our firm also does provide some what's called non-attached services. So as you know, maintaining our independence is the cornerstone of the auditing profession when you're doing the external audit, which is our role. We do, however, perform some non-audit services, and we safeguard that, meaning we don't make any management decisions, we don't take responsibility. We provide the expertise and then your management oversees those services and then takes responsibility for those. So list up those there. On the left, you'll see the data collection form. That's something that, because of those federal funds that come in, the disaster recovery, along with any other grants that come in, that's an annual required form. We help in preparing that. The financial statements, some of those component units that are kind of outside of the direct management of the finance department, we help prepare some of that year-end financial information for those. And then some other here, you can see that FEMA funding process. There was some expertise there that we provided for your management to oversee. And in all of those, we've safeguarded that independence and would bring to your attention if we not there. Sorry. So just a reconfirmation that while we've done these other non-attest services, we've maintained our independence there. All right, and then this is the slide of no's, where if we had any difficulties in getting through the audit or disagreements with your management during any of the course of the audit procedures or the financial statements, we would bring that to your attention. We did not have any of those to report to you. We did not have to consult outside of the engagement team, so no significant or unusual items that we had to consult outside of our audit team. And then your management will sign for us the representation letter to take responsibility that they were truthful in our inquiries and did not withhold information that would have been relevant to either the audit or the financial statements. Thank you. All right, so any of you have seen the printed annual report knows that it's a pretty thick beast, probably in excess of 200-something pages right now. In there are the financial statements that we opine on. There's also what's called required supplementary information, which includes your management discussion and analysis and some other schedules in the back. There's supplementary information, which is kind of a second tier of opining that we do. And then there's other information, all the tables and statistical data that your management includes in that annual report. So what these words on the slide here just describe for you are the level of responsibility and auditing that we did to each of those in relation to the audit of the financial statements themselves. All right, a couple of upcoming standards in the GASB, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board that writes the rules that you have to follow for the financial statements. And I know that we always get excited about these every year because of the changes that come down the pike. But these are just a couple that are coming up in the next year that your management will have to be considering there. The model improvements, which will be sure to point out any changes that kind of come to light there, and then just additional disclosures on certain assets. I will remind you that while we work with your management to get the audit done, and again, we are here as planned on time from the kickoff of the engagement, ready to issue. We work with management to get it done. We report to you. And so I just remind you that you have my contact information here. You have Lauren Strope, who is the one signing the report, the audit there, available to you. Appreciate the time on the agenda. But also, you have our information if you ever would like to reach out to us.
Well, Ms. Bonnie, I think I've been chairing this committee for, I think this is the 7th year in a row, and this is probably the most stellar committee that you've had so far, because all three of us have accounting degrees, so we're like, ooh. So I don't know that Mike was as excited as Allison and I, but
talking about this
but we totally get like, ooh, GASB,
it is exciting.
So, but it's not lost on us that as we're going through this, no difficulties, no disagreements, no fraud, no violations. That is a big deal for as big as this operation is to not find anything, you know, because lots of times you need to find something just to prove that you did your job. But Leanne, my goodness, this is fantastic. You did a great job. Thank you so much for
my
your hard
staff
work.
as well.
Yeah.
All of you,
Hard work.
thank you so much.
And you can ask Leanne and her staff. It's not for not looking. Like, we ask a ton of questions, and we
They are
give
still
them a
asking
good
questions.
Yeah.
we give them a good scrub.
Maybe you just give them a
good
little
audit.
something to find so they can act like they did. But do y'all have any questions for Ms. Cox?
You make the County looked great.
Yes.
We appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions, Allison? Thank you so much.
You are welcome, and I'm going to apologize. I have a previous commitment. I'm
No,
going to slip out, but
I
anyway,
understand.
thank you again
Thank
for
you
the
so
time.
much.
Thank you, Bonnie.
All right, we will accept those comments as presented as information, and with a huge thank you to staff for all their hard work. Let's move into, what do we have next? No, we have Brother Max Evans. We get more accounting reports.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I do have two reports to present to you today. We'll start with the Facility Services Division. As I always often remind you, we come through each department on a three-year rotation. And so it was time to actually go to the maintenance department again. But there's been some reorganization. We have a new Facility Services Division now, which includes maintenance, landscaping, janitorial, and special projects. And so it's a good opportunity for us to take a look at the whole new division and all of those departments within it, put that together in one report for you. So performed all of our routine duties, purchase cards, purchase requisitions, timesheets, and looked at inventory. And we had no findings in any of those areas. We also took an analytical approach to work orders. Work orders are how we track the activities of the maintenance department. And we took a look at the average length to close, which came out to about 7.6 days. That statistical data is on page 6. We did recommend perhaps a monthly review of open work orders because we think that the average length could be shortened. We know some that were probably should have been closed, but we made a recommendation on that and management responded, and all of that is in the report. Overall, a great internal audit, no significant findings of any type. And again, some interesting stats there, average length to close a work order, 7.6 days. So any questions on facility services?
How do you, when you're looking at the length of days these are open, it's kind of a judgment call on saying, you know, some were open too long or too short. Being in construction myself, I know sometimes you just can't get it done in a certain amount of time.
Sure.
What is your litmus test for saying something was too long or
So
not?
we looked at, I believe it was 967 work orders during the period of time that we looked at. I thought 7.6 days actually seemed pretty reasonable. We just noted some that had been open for a number of months, or maybe could have been closed, or should have been closed and hadn't been closed. And in discussions with management, as we asked questions about it, we came to the conclusion that perhaps a periodic review of open work orders would be helpful, because as we made inquiries of, oh, why is this still open? The answers were things like should have been closed, or of course there were instances where there's just a longer project, of course, and those are reasonable explanations.
Well, it stands to reason if some maybe should have been closed and were held open, that makes the average longer than.
So the average might really go down if some extra open projects were closed sooner. But the recommendation is not to imply that that the projects are not being handled in a diligent manner. It's just an analytical measure, kind of only so many things you can measure in a department like this. So we like to take a look at it. We do similar things for 311 and things like that to see how quickly things get closed out once they get started. Any other questions about the Services Division?
No? Let's move on to the next one, please.
All right, so the second report I have for you is a follow-up. So last time we met, I reported to you on the results of our internal audit of the Clerk of Court's office. At that time, we had two findings, well, one finding related to a bank reconciliation, and then some questions from the committee that I needed to follow up on to get answered. So we'll start with the bank reconciliation. So I have some notes here. So the during that previous report, we disclosed that one of the clerk of court's bank reconciliations had about $800,000 of what we call deposits in transit that were erroneous. So we made the recommendation at the time that that bank reconciliation be cleaned up, and that going forward in the future, that the bank reconciliations are prepared correctly and reviewed for errors and errors get resolved. So in the interim, the clerk of court's office, working with their software vendor, they did remove those erroneous transactions. What I did afterwards is I went back through, I got all of those bank statements and bank reconciliations over the course of a long period of time, going back to December of 21, actually, is where I started. And I found all of the duplicate transactions in order to confirm that indeed the transactions that were voided and removed were duplicates and erroneous. So I spent a lot of time tracing all those transactions, matching them up. And so I believe it is correct that they have removed these transactions, and the bank reconciliation and bank balance is now more correct. In the report, you'll see that 3 years ago, in 2022, the last time we reported on the clerk of court's office, in this same bank account, there was $50,000 in erroneous deposits in transit. We made the recommendation at that time that they be corrected and removed. They remained on the reconciliation, and then over the course of the next few years, that amount increased to about $800,000. Most of it, this is also included in the report, about 81% of this number all happened in one month. There was apparently an implementation of a new software, was the explanation that was given us, and 90 transactions were duplicated on the January 2022 bank reconciliation, when that took us up to almost $800,000, and that error was carried forward over the years until we came back around 3 years later, and that was what I reported on last time. So I've looked at this from every possible angle, and the correct thing to do was to remove those duplicate transactions, and they have done that now.
I know that was a tedious task to go back and match all that up, so we certainly appreciate you doing that. It needed to be done, and shame on us for letting it go quite that long before we addressed it. So am I reading correctly in your report that of the 800,000, there's still about 80 hanging out there?
Okay, so I rarely do 100% of anything, but I traced 90% of these transactions. When I got to that 90% threshold, I stopped. The pattern was well established. The issue of duplicate transactions caused the misstatement of cash, but the internal control operational issue is not reviewing and correcting errors timely. But now it's been corrected, and so going forward, I would recommend that the clerk of court review these reconciliations, and when odd things appear, correct them more timely.
But there is 80,000 still appears to be duplicates from a more recent?
They actually are a little bit more recent, that's correct. So the 90% that I identified specifically in the bank statement, those were more in those older years. And so I believe the couple that I didn't fully trace to the bank statement were in 2023. But it's a relative handful of transactions from the whole grouping.
Is someone from that office working on rectifying that?
Well, I believe the problem is solved as of this moment in time. So the population of which I'm saying I've personally traced 90%, the population that I'm referring to is the population of voided transactions. So Once they worked with their software vendor, identified the transactions, and went through the process of voiding them, I obtained that list of transactions, and that became my population to test out. And I traced 90% of those all the way to the bank statement, which is to say that I matched the voided item to an item on the bank reconciliation that had cleared. So the previously outstanding matched to cleared, then from the bank reconciliation to the bank statement to see that it actually cleared, which I did for 90% of that population.
But again, the other 10%, that 80,000, do we believe that somebody on staff is working to clear those up, or is it just like, okay, we got rid of him, it's sitting here, we'll
I can get additional bank statements and trace the last 10% if you'd like.
What's your confidence in? Trace them.
I'm highly confident that it would be the same set of circumstances.
we'll put this one back on the rotation for pretty soon and get all that cleared up. All right, and there was one more item that you were reviewing in that department?
Yes, so there have been some questions back in September about how the new passport process happens at the clerk of court's office. And I was not able to fully answer those questions. In real time, in September, I realized that I needed to go back and ask some deeper questions. So we did that. We went back and re-interviewed the clerk of court and made sure that we had a full understanding of how this is processed. Did some additional research on legal environment around this. And of course, the passport, of course, is not a passport to Columbia County, it's a passport to the nation. So the Department of State is actually who issues a passport, but they allow certain people specifically identified in federal law to actually be the facilitator of that. It could be the postmaster, short list, it could be the postmaster, or it could be the clerk of court. And so clerk of court has started processing these applications. Now there's a fee or cost which goes to the State Department, and then there's a fee that the clerk of court charges to that applicant, which goes to the clerk of court. So at present, if a person applies for a passport, they have to bring two forms of payment, which have to be check or money order. One which goes in an envelope, it goes to the Department of State, and one which goes to the clerk of court. And one of the reasons for my confusion about this is because there's no general ledger where that clerk of court's fee is entered. It just goes straight to the clerk of court into a separate bank account. And that makes it difficult to track because there's no general ledger report that can be run, income statement that can be run for these transactions. It's outside of the county's accounting. Now, but I tried to be clear in my report. I can't make a legal determination. I'm not an attorney or a judge, so I don't have a legal opinion, can't make a legal finding. But I'm not aware of any non-compliance in the way that this issuance of passports is being processed. It seems to be fully in accordance with the federal law and then also the state code as well, from my reading of it. However, as I became more familiar with it, I did notice that the state code does require that the clerk report periodically to the Board of Commissioners how many passports are being processed and how much money is being generated from that. And so I made the recommendation to the clerk of court that that reporting process be initiated. I said monthly. I believe I put monthly, or maybe quarterly. I can't remember. I went back and forth on that. Quarterly, perhaps, would be frequently enough, in my opinion, but that would really be a determination for you to come up with. And recommended the consideration be given to running these transactions through the county. Now, I don't know all the details of making that happen, but what I do know is that the county, through many of its citizen-facing departments, has the ability to receive payments, record those payments in a general ledger, process remittances. There's the payroll department that could send that clerk of court's commission to the clerk of court. I don't know, again, all the details that would be involved, but it would certainly make it easier to track and report the number of passports and the amount of earnings on those passports if there were a way to run the transactions through the county. So,
How are the earnings reported? A W-2 or a 1099 or how?
So that would be between the clerk of court and her tax preparer. It is a taxable compensation to her, which is one of the reasons why I mentioned the payroll department, because withholdings could be taken from that, which would be a benefit to the clerk of court, so she wouldn't have a tax liability at the end of the year, because it would be taxable compensation.
So when you kind of tested and looked at some of these, you were looking at February through July. For 6 months, there was about $17,000, almost $18,000 worth of fees on her side.
Yes.
So it's fair to say 35 a year, you know, at the average. Is there any movement after your conversation with them for them to get on a schedule to report to us? Did they?
No, the clerk of court has received the report, including that recommendation. I would suggest that the Board of Commissioners, in discussion with the clerk of court, could determine whether that's going to be a quarterly, semi-annual, or annual report. I don't believe that the frequency of the report is stipulated in the Georgia code, just that it's necessary to report back to the Board of Commissioners.
Good. No further questions. Thank you so much for your.
You're very
Well,
welcome.
let's talk about what we're doing going forward. I see on your list, you've got recycling, libraries, and Parks and Rec. The library thing, as controversial as it is brand new, so there's really not a lot to audit first quarter for that. Can we put that off maybe the second quarter, so there's something to look?
Sure. These are the items that have come up on the rotation, which I just like to throw on that list there and kind of keep you up to date on what's happening. The libraries, I could certainly push out a quarter, because there's a lot in the Parks and Rec kind of area. So I want to take a look at the most up-to-date organizational chart there, and there are several departments within that umbrella that are due for a look.
Let's do recycling, Parks and Rec, and I'm gonna put you back on the clerk of court to find that other $80,000 for us.
Okay.
Back, is quarter planning
Sure.
for that? Sure. Let's do that. Is that okay with you? Those three.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there any commissioner or public comment regarding the audit? Very good. Seeing none, we are going to adjourn and reconvene in 3 minutes for the Management and Internal Services Committee. Thank you.